I think it really depends on which conflict mediation initiative we're talking about. Some of them do reproduce the divide, others are much more subtle. But what's really important is that when we reproduce this divide post-conflict between conflict and post-conflict, there are extremely important implications. You have different funding pattern, whether you're in a conflict zone or not in a conflict zone. In conflict zones, you have very short-term funding. You have different kind of funding instruments, different actors, different donors, than when it's a post-conflict. You also have a different way of interacting with warring parties or with parties who use violence, and a different way of talking with them, and of decided whether or not they can be included at the negotiation table. So the implications are extremely important, and that's why I'm arguing that whether we're talking about mediation or about peace building, we have to be much more subtle about this distinction between conflict and post-conflict. Right. I think it can, but it really depends on how people from the global south will approach their interventions in other countries. If they reproduce the way international peace building works on the ground currently, meaning you arrive and as an expert who's been sent to resolve a conflict, you think you know everything, and you impose your way of working, or you don't involve local people in the design and planning of your efforts, you interact with them in a way that is very distant, then if they do that, if they reproduce the usual ways of working, whether they come from the global south or from the global north will not make any difference. Now, if they decide that because they come from the global south, they want to have a different approach, they want to adopt the approach that I advocate for in my book, they want to remain more low profile, more humble, they want to involve local people in the design and in the planning of their efforts, then they can have a huge influence.